Alright, without any doubt, this video will be the most complex that we've had so far. So really, if you need to pause it, play it, rewind it, anything you need to help you with this, then please do, okay? Right, we're going to do F5 and F6 today. Now, before I do F5 and F6, I'm going to remind you, just like I did in the previous video, about F2. And you'll see why in a second. So let's say I said x squared minus x minus 42 equals 0. Okay? I'm going to compare that with F5 right now. Question F5 might look a bit like this. 3x squared plus 10x plus 3 equals 0. Okay. First things first, they're both quadratic. You know that because they've got x squared, so therefore they're both going to be quadratic. The second thing you realise is that they both equal 0, which in the previous video, as you might remember, that's so important for us to be able to factorise and solve these. So therefore, that's done for us, so that's fantastic. Now, the big difference here is that x squared has not got a coefficient in front of it, whereas this one, well, it does 1 technically, and this one does. It's got a number 3 in front of it. So by my method of doing this and saying, right, two numbers that multiply to get negative 42 and add to get negative 1, negative 7, and positive 6 equals 0. I solve it, x equals 7, x equals negative 6, done. That was nice and easy for us. This is a different process, okay? So it's very important you watch carefully, particularly if you've never ever seen or know how to factorize a quadratic looking like this. So I'm going to label A, B, C. A is always for the number in front of the x squared. B is the number in front of the x. And C is the number by itself just there. You always, to begin with, when factorising with a number in front of the x squared, do AC. That means A multiplied by C, which in this case is 3 times by 3, positive 3. So 3 times by 3 is 9. Now, do you remember in this example here, we wanted to find two numbers that multiplied to get negative 42 and added to get negative 1? Here, we want to find two numbers that multiply to get 9 and add to get 10. So basically, two numbers that multiply to get whatever our AC is and add to get whatever our B is. So two numbers that times together to get 9, add to get 10, 9 and 1, both positive. Because 9 times 1 is 9, 9 plus 1 is 10. Now, unlike here, where we just simply put it in the brackets and we're done, that's not the case for this. What I'm going to do, the 3x squared, I'm not going to change. The plus 3 at the end, I'm not going to change. The only thing I'm going to change is B. Because I know my answers for my previous question was 9 and 1. So that 10x is going to become plus 9x plus technically 1x or x. And so what I've done here, my 9x and my 1x, is what I got from here. So step 1, label A, B, C. Step 2, find AC. Step 3, find two numbers that multiply to get this answer and add to get this answer. Step 4, write those two numbers in place of B. Now what I do is I split the equation down the middle and I separately factorize this left-hand side and then I separately factorize this right-hand side. So when I factorize this left-hand side, I look and I say, well, actually, that isn't a quadratic as we're used to because they've both got x in common. So therefore, I can factorize out 3x, open bracket, x plus 3. Separately, I look at this and I say, well, can I factorize that? The only thing they've got in common is 1. Now, normally I'd say, so therefore you just leave it. But in this case, you must factorize out 1, otherwise it won't make any sense later. So we're going to add 1, put x, because 1 times x is x, plus 1 times 3 is 3. Now, this is where you know you're right. This is where you know you're lucky. Because both the expressions in the brackets are the same, and that's exactly what we want. That proves that what we're doing is correct. So one of our factorized brackets is going to be x plus 3. Now the other factorized bracket won't be the other x plus 3 because that's covered in this one. We'd look and we'd say what's on the outside of this bracket and what's on the outside of this bracket. 3x add 1. So therefore in that bracket is 3x add 1. Now you could double check this to see if it's right by expanding that out, and you'll end up with that answer. So therefore you know you are right. So there's a lot of complicated steps there, but you might have to rewind the video and look at and practice yourself. I'm going to do a few more examples, don't worry. But it is difficult, so it's definitely worth a look. Now, if the question just said to factorize it, then you're done. You've got the full marks there. If this one says to solve, which it will do, to solve, then you've still got to equal it to 0. And then you do the same process that you normally would for the previous questions. X plus 3 equals 0. 3x plus 1 equals 0. Minus 3, x equals negative 3. Minus 1, 3x equals negative 1. Divide by 3, x equals negative 1 over 3. Okay, so that's our answers there to solve it, okay? Just for those that care enough, which I hope is a lot of you, as a graph, what would that look like? Well, you can see here that when x is 0 and 0, the y value is 3. So therefore, we know it's going to go through y value of 3 here. We know that x equals negative 3, which is going to look a little bit like here. And we know that x is negative 1/3. For those of you that need sort of context of that, that's negative 0.33. So if that's negative 1 there, we're looking around here. And therefore, I think it would look a little bit like that. Okay? So that's negative 3 and that's negative 1 over 3. So that's the first example of F5. I'm actually going to do another example here. Just here, just so on the next page I can do F6, which is very, very similar, just with negatives. So 5 solve, by the way, it will say solve 5x squared plus 36x plus 7 equals 0. Right, I'm not going to go through it in as much detail, but you should know because there's a number in front there, I must label it A, B, and C in order to factorize, because it already equals 0, so that's great. AC, 5 times 7 is 35. If, by the way, you want to try this yourself, pause the video, get your answer, and see if I get the same answer. So then I say to myself, two numbers that multiply to get 35, but add to get 36, is going to be 35 and 1. So the A stays the same, 5x squared. The C stays the same, plus 7. But the B becomes 35x and 1x. So 35x and then technically 1x, but I could just put x. I then split these two down the middle. How do I factorize that? Well, 5 is in the common and so is x. So 5x plus 7. And then separately look at this. What's in common with these two? Nothing apart from 1. So plus 1 and then x plus 7. We know we're good because the two brackets are the same here, which is exactly what we want. So one of our answers will be x plus 7 for sure. The other answer is going to be what's on the outside of those brackets. 5x and then add 1. 5x add 1. That would be it if the question said factorize. It doesn't, it says solve. So therefore I'm going to equal it to 0, equals 0. X plus 7 equals 0. Minus 7, x equals negative 7. That's one of our answers. 5x plus 1 equals 0. Minus 1, 5x equals negative 1. Divide by 5, x equals negative 1 over 5. That is the other answer. Okay? So, going to do two very quick examples of F6 and then we shall be done from this video. F6. Solve 2x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals 0. And the second one is solve 3x squared minus 4x minus 20 equals 0. Again, if you feel confident, you crack on with it without me. Okay, you can pause the video now and crack on. Right, we know why I've got to factorize it. We know I can factorize it because of the 0, and we know that because there's a number in front of the x squared, I must follow the ABC process. AC, in this case, 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. You must watch out for the negatives. So two numbers that times to get negative 10 and add to get 3 is going to be 5 and negative 2. Because 5 times negative 2, negative 10, 5 minus 2 is positive 3. So the A stays the same, the C stays the same, the B turns into these two. So plus 5x minus 2x, that's it, done. I now want to factorize these two. What's in common with them? Only x. So x comes out. So it'll be 2x plus 5. And then what's in common with these? Well, technically only minus 1. So therefore it will be 2x plus 5. Now this is where a lot of confusion might occur. That should be fine. This one you could struggle with. If they're both negative, they've got negative 1 in common. Okay? Negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x. Negative 1 times positive 5 is negative 5. It's important that we know to factorize it like that. Both of these are the same. If you get two brackets that are not the same, you have done something wrong. Simple as, okay? So one of our brackets, is 2x plus 5, because of those two. The next one is going to be x minus 1. Because I'm solving it, I'm equaling it to 0. So 2x plus 5 equals 0. X minus 1 equals 0. Minus 5 minus 5. 2x equals negative 5. Divide by 2, divide by 2. X equals negative 5 over 2. That's one of our answers. Add 1, x equals positive 1. Okay, really quickly before my last example here. If I chose to do 2x squared minus 2x plus 5x minus 5 instead of swap these two round, I would still end up with the same final answer. The working out would be slightly different with the brackets, but the exact same method and the same final answer. Okay, last step. Again, we know this is ABC. A, B, C. AC equals negative 60 because 3 times negative 20. So two numbers that times to get 60, negative 60, and add to get negative 4. Well, straight away, I think 10 and 6. So I think it'll be negative 10 and positive 6 because they times to get that and add to get that. So therefore, my A is the same, 3x squared. My C is the same, minus 20. The only difference right now is this. You know what? I could just prove a point. I'll do it the other way. So it'll be positive 6x here and minus 10x here. I want to factorize it. So what's in common with these two? 3x, x plus 2. And then what's in common with these two? Minus 10, x plus 2, remember, because negative 10 times positive 2 is negative 20. Ideal, both of these are the same, which I wanted. So it'd be x plus 2. And then I've got the leftover ones, so 3x minus 10. That would be it if the question was to factorize it. It's not, it's to solve it. So therefore I now do x plus 2 equals 0 and 3x minus 10 equals 0. Minus 2, x equals negative 2. Add 10, 3x equals positive 10. Divide by 3, x equals 10 over 3. And for anyone that still cares, if I was going to draw that on a graph for this specific one here, x equals negative 2 would be around here. X equals 10 over 3. Well, 10 over 3, 10 divided by 3 is like 3.333. So 3.33 might be around here. So 10 over 3. And then we know that the y value is negative 20 down here. So I imagine it will look a little bit like that. Okay? Rewatch the video if you need to, guys. It's definitely the hardest we've done so far. So good luck.